Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the comprehensive world of internal auditing and governance. Specifically, we're channeling the highly structured expertise of Sameh Herakli to unpack day 46 of his curriculum, which is all about SOX compliance.
Okay, let's dive into this. We are going to distill this massive compliance blueprint into its core rules, risks, and controls, breaking down every single detail so you can understand exactly how to safeguard financial integrity.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, the foundations of SOX compliance. Second, the core SOX process. Third, roles, risks, and deficiencies. And finally, best practices and takeaways. Let's get right to it.
Part 1. Foundations of SOX compliance.
Day 46, SOX compliance. So what actually is SOX compliance? Well, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, or SOX, is a U.S. federal law enacted back in 2002 to protect investors by improving the accuracy and reliability of corporate disclosures and preventing fraud in financial reporting. Basically, it refers to an organization's strict adherence to the requirements of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, ensuring transparency, accountability, and integrity in financial reporting and disclosures. Think back to those massive corporate frauds in the early 2000s that totally devastated investor trust. This law was the heavy-hitting response to that. Moving right along to the objectives of SOX, it's really about building a wall against deception. First, protect investors from fraud. Second, improve the accuracy and reliability of reporting. Third, increase corporate accountability and transparency. Fourth, establish rock-solid internal controls over reporting. Fifth, ensure timely and complete disclosures. And finally, strengthen audit independence and oversight. Every single one of these objectives is a targeted countermeasure against the loopholes of the past. And this brilliantly illustrates the key sections of SOX that actually give the law its teeth. We've got Section 302, Corporate Responsibility, Section 404, Internal Controls, or ICFR, Section 409, Real-Time Issuer Disclosures, Section 906, CEO and CFO Certification. Then look at the severity of Section 802, Criminal Penalties. I mean, altering or destroying records here isn't just a fine, it carries literal criminal penalties. And lastly, Section 803, Whistleblower Protection. That one is absolutely crucial, so employees can speak up without fear of retaliation. All right, part 2, the core SOX process. Let's look at the key components. Think of these like the essential gears of the compliance machine. You have internal control over financial reporting, or ICFR, then management assessment, auditor attestation, disclosures and certifications, documentation and testing, and finally, the remediation of deficiencies. All of these work closely together to keep the organization running safely. Now, Section 404. This is the core of SOX and the most critical requirement of all. The rule is explicit. Management assesses and reports on the effectiveness of ICFR. Then external auditors must attest and report on that assessment. So the flow looks exactly like this. Management assessment leads to auditor attestation, which goes right into the report in the annual filing, the 10K. To make this happen, management has 5 focus areas they absolutely cannot skip: the control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring activities. They literally have to evaluate the whole shebang. Which brings us to the SOX compliance process. Achieving this takes a very strict, cyclical approach. Step 1, understand SOX requirements. Step 2, identify key processes and risks. Step 3, design and document controls. Step 4, test operating effectiveness. Step 5, report deficiencies. And Step 6, remediate and monitor. It's an energetic, continuous loop you've got to run through every single year. Now, what's really interesting about this is seeing the example for internal control over financial reporting, or ICFR, in action. Let's bridge the theory to reality here. Take the payroll process. A massive risk is paying ghost employees. So the control example, strict access protocols and payroll reconciliation. For accounts payable, you prevent duplicate payments using a 3-way match of purchase orders, receipts, and invoices, all backed by approval workflows. For revenue, you review entries to catch incorrect recording. And for journal entries, threshold approvals stop fraudulent activity dead in its tracks. It's all about matching a practical control to a very real-world risk. Moving into Part 3, roles, risks, and deficiencies. Let's talk roles and responsibilities, because at the end of the day, systems are run by people, right? So, clear boundaries are everything. The board of directors provides the overarching oversight. Management, meaning the CEO and CFO, assess the controls and actually certify those statements. The internal auditor evaluates the design. The external auditor comes in for that final independent attestation. And employees, they're on the ground floor operating the controls. It is a perfectly balanced ecosystem of accountability. But where do things actually go wrong? Let's look at the common SOX compliance risks. You've got inadequate internal controls, management override of controls, incomplete or inaccurate disclosures, lack of documentation, insufficient monitoring, failure to remediate control deficiencies, and IT system access vulnerabilities. Two of those are absolute real-world traps: management overriding their own rules and IT system vulnerabilities. I mean, if an executive can just bypass the system, or if anyone can hop into your financial software unchecked, your entire control environment just collapses. Let's move on and see how this builds into examples of deficiencies. When those vulnerabilities get exploited, it leads to tangible issues, and it's vital to understand the nuances here. A control not designed effectively means the rule itself was flawed from day one. But a control not operating as designed, that means the rule is perfect on paper, but folks on the ground are failing to follow it in reality. You also have a lack of evidence to support control operation, a compensating control not being effective, or significant deficiency or material weakness in the ICFR. All of these ultimately lead to a breakdown in trust.
And that brings us to Part 4, Best Practices and Takeaways.
So how do we proactively prevent those pitfalls? Here are the SOX compliance best practices. Establish a strong control environment. Document controls clearly and consistently. Perform regular control testing. Use technology for automation and monitoring. Ensure timely remediation of issues. Provide regular training and awareness, and maintain open communication with auditors. Basically, committing to these steps actively fortifies your business against literally all the risks we just went through. Now, what's the payoff? The benefits of SOX compliance are absolutely massive. We're talking improved financial reporting accuracy, greater investor confidence, stronger internal controls, reduced risk of fraud, better corporate governance, avoidance of legal penalties, and enhanced reputation and trust. So yeah, it's not just bureaucratic red tape. It is a powerful mechanism for avoiding fines and supercharging investor confidence.
If you're an internal auditor listening to this explainer, here is your practical sample checklist for auditors. Review SOX policy and scope. Identify key financial reporting processes. Assess risks and key controls. Review control documentation. Test design and operating effectiveness. Evaluate deficiencies and root causes. Verify remediation and management review. Review management certifications. And ensure auditor attestation requirements. Stick to that list and you'll maintain order and keep those external auditors happy.
So the crucial point is this key takeaway. SOX compliance ensures integrity and transparency in financial reporting through effective internal controls, management accountability, and independent audit oversight. It is not just a legal requirement, but a foundation for good governance and sustainable business. That right there is the philosophical core of Sameh Herakli's entire masterclass.
And finally, I want you to remember this equation. Understand requirements, plus design and test controls, plus document and report, plus remediate and monitor, equals stronger controls, which leads to better compliance and ultimately increased trust. As the saying goes, good controls today, reliable financials tomorrow. So let me leave you with this provocative thought. If external auditors walked into your building tomorrow to test this exact blueprint, how would your organization hold up under the pressure? Think about it. Thanks for learning with us today.